Morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on when you're watching this service. I'd like to welcome you to our Buddhist Churches of America first virtual Obon Kangye Hoyo. This is hosted by the Northwest District Ministers Association. We're joined by Bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America, Reverend Marvin Harada, Chairperson of the BCA Ministers Association, Reverend Harry Bridge, Northwest District Kyokucho and Oregon Buddhist Temple, Reverend Yuki Sugahara, Fierobetsuin Dimban, Reverend Katsuya Kusunoki, Tacoma Buddhist Temple, Reverend Tadao Koyama, White River Buddhist Temple, Reverend Jim Warwick, Idaho Oregon Buddhist Temple, myself, the Ministers Association Chairperson, Reverend Harry Bridge, Northern District, Reverend Candice Shibata, Bay District, Reverend Dean Koyama, Coast District, Reverend J. Shinseki, Southern District, Reverend Ryuta Furumoto, Mountain District, myself, Eastern District, Reverend Miyamura. Did I forget anybody? Hopefully not. I'd like to begin today's service with Reverend J. Shinseki, chanting of Shishinrai and Hyobyakumon.
Namandavus, 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 Namandavus. Today, on this historic occasion of the BCA Obon observance, people from across the country have gathered to observe the 2020 Obon. Today, we remember our Dharma brothers and sisters who have died since our last Obon, and we dedicate this Obon gathering to them. We also acknowledge our Black brothers and sisters who have died in the fight for freedom, justice, and equality. We memorialize all those who have died as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we remember those who died this month, 75 years ago, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We gather at this Obon to express our gratitude for Amida's benevolent compassion. It is an opportunity for family, friends, and our Sangha to strengthen relationships and to deepen our understanding of life through the Nembutsu teaching taught by Shinran Shonin. This moment allows us to realize how our departed loved ones continue to influence our lives. Through them, we are made to realize that our lives are a continuation of their lives and all other lives. May the light of the lanterns remind us of the light that shines from the boundless life of those we love. That light is the reminder of what we have received and how their life continues to take effect upon us. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha, we reaffirm the three homages. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Kia Boots, Namo Kia Ho, Namo Kia So, Namandavus, 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 Namandavus.
Thank you, Reverend Shinseki. Thank you for that wonderful proclamation and chanting of Shishinrai. Now continue on with today's service with chanting of Amidakyo, led by Reverend Katsuya Kusunoki, Rinban of Seattle, Betsy.
Namanda, 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 Namanda. Amidakyo Nyoze Gamon Chiji Butzai Shae Kokugi Juki Kodoku Yodai Bikushu Senni Hyakugoju Ninku Aize Dai Arakan Shusho Chishik Shoro Shari Hotun Maka Mokenem Maka Kasho Maka Kasenem Maka Kuchira Ihata Shuri Hamdaga Nanda Ananda Madora Dobon Hadai Binzuru Harada Tarudai Maka Kohimna Hakura Anuruda Nyoseto Shodai Deshi Byosho Bosat Makasat Monju Shiri Hoji Aita Bosat Temda Kadai Bosat Josho Jin Bosat Jonyo Zeto Shodai Bosat Gushaku Daikan Hinto Uryo Shoten Daishuku Niji Butno Shoro Shari Hotun Tuze Saiho Kaju Mamnoku Butno Use Kai Myoatun Gokuraku Godo Ubutun Go Amida Kongen Zai Seppo Shari Hotun Hido Gako Yoi Gokuraku Gokoku Shujo Byushuku Anju Shoraku Komyo Gokuraku Ushari Hot Gokura Kokudo Shijuranje Shijuramo Shijugoju Kaize Shiho Shiso Hinyo Eko Hikoku Byoatun Gokuraku Ushari Hot Gokura Kokudo Ushipochi Haku Dokusu Umangochu Chitai Junni Konsha Fuji Ihem Kaido Kongon Duri Ari Gojo Dohuro Kaku Yakui Kongon Duri Ari Shako Shakushume no Nigon Jikishi Chichurenge Daimyo Sharin Shoshiki Shoko Oshiki Yoko Shakushiki Shako Byakushiki Byakko Imyo Koken Shari Hot Gokura Kokudo Joju Nyoze Kudoku Shoma Ushari Hotun Hibu Kokudo Josa Tengak Ogon Iji Tuyarokushi Ihu Mandarake Kokoku Shujo Johi Shota Kakui Koku Joshu Ryoke Kuyota Uman Nokubutun Sokui Jikiji Gento Hongok Monjiki Kyogyo Shari Hot 国ら国土上中領税中毒商馬武士シャリホン非国上有四十金合宿市長白国弱オムシャイ大量便が重病市長税商州昼夜六時水は下本五本延長高根合力式母大分発祥道行税東方合同修正門税本に大失年別年俸年相シャリホ尿物に市長実税財宝省消費者が非部国土無産幕出非北合部国土東部山脈道市名画教宇治継承州長改正阿弥陀仏抑量法本線路園芸少佐シャリ北非部国土岐阜水道商工五十牛ホラモ水美妙本泌尿百戦十当時草門税本者愛知年上年仏年俸年相しシャリ北欧部国土上州領税功徳将軍シャリホお尿意運が気分がこごあみだシャリホ気分公明無料生じ報告無償証下税公合意あみだるシャリホ気分寿命15人未無料無限あそぎこ公明阿弥陀シャリホン阿弥陀成仏以来横根実行有シャリホン気分不無量無正門弟子会やらかきぜ三十四章の地消防さん百部尿税シャリホン気分国土上中尿税中毒症ユシャリホン極楽国土修上少者改正アビバッジ高中タウ一生不詳高州人多非税三十章の地安海無料無限阿蘇義公説シャリホン修上門者応答北岸願書被告所有者が国用領税少女善人空営一緒シャリホン無海小前言福徳院国書被告シャリホン逆風前南市全領に本節阿弥陀仏修持名簿約1日、約2日、約3日、約4日、約5日、約6日、約7日、一心不乱、公認臨明寺、阿弥陀仏、幼少少寿、現在午前全人中、神風天道、即徳法助、阿弥陀仏、極楽国土、シャリホ、他県前理、骨折し、逆風修上門で拙者応答北岸将棋国土シャリホンヨガ根者三段阿弥陀不可思議空毒逃亡薬足首仏中味僧大衆味仏中味公仏妙本仏妙税と高賀社修正白王合国水光上絶素天風三千大仙世界戦場実言尿道宗方針前哨三不可思議空毒一切小正五年行シャリホン南方世界空日合道仏妙門公仏大円見仏海公仏無料精進仏尿税と大賀社修正仏白王合国水光上絶素天風三千大仙世界戦場実言尿道修正等身前少佐不可思議空毒一切小仏小五年行シ ャリホン大法世界無料無料総仏無料道仏大公仏大名放送仏上皇仏行税と動画社修正仏白王合国水工上絶素天風三千大仙世界戦場実の上等修正等身前少佐空化市議空毒一切小仏総合年魚チャーリーホッ北方世界遊園県大正本仏南小仏日照仏毛明行税と動画社修正仏白王合水耕上絶相天風三千大仙世界戦場実の上等修正等親善少佐空化市議空毒一切小仏超合連魚チャーリーホッ芸法世界空死死仏妙門仏妙高薩摩仏報道仏自法仏行税と動画社修正仏白王国水耕上絶相原風三千大仙世界戦場実言尿等修更新前哨三空化市議空毒一切小合年行シャーリーホッ情報性空門論仏宿王仏工場仏高校仏大円圏仏座敷法系言心シャラ中央仏法系特仏権一切義領収未戦仏尿税と社修正仏各王語水耕上絶相原風三千大仙世界戦場実言尿等修正等親善少佐空化市議空毒一切小仏超合年魚チャーリーホッ大尿異運が学校名一切小仏超合年魚シャーリーホッ薬風仙南市天領人門絶小仏小説名宗教名者聖書全南市全領人会議一切小優勝5年開徳風大天大和のくた三脈三宝大税公シャリーホッ上等会と真珠が五仏性仏性でシャリーホッ薬風人イーホッガンコンポッガン大ホッガン翼章阿弥陀仏国者聖商人と開徳風大天大和のくたら三脈三宝大大非国道脈衣装脈根性脈当初成功シャリーホッ朝鮮南市全領に脈風信者応答ホッガン正気国土シャリーホッ尿が根者小三小空化市議空毒非小仏と役所説が空化市議空毒二差税釈無二仏能意人南京風市事農法シャバ国土公辱悪性公辱権辱煩悩辱中上辱病辱中徳はのくたら三脈三宝大非小修上説明一切政権安心司法シャリーホ法治が法公辱悪性行使難事徳はのくたら三脈三宝大一切政権摂氏難心司法聖意人難仏政司教育シャリーホッ仏教ビーク一切世間天人アシュラト文部諸説反義真珠さらいにこう仏説阿弥陀経ナマンダブナマンダブナマ がんにしくどく平等せいさいどういう本望大師おゆしょうああん Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo
Thank you, Reverend Kusunoki. As you've explained in your chanting workshops, that was a very appropriate love song to Amida. Now we will continue with the Threefold Refuge led by Reverend Candice Shibata, Kyokucho for the Northern District.
The Threefold Refuge. Difficult is it to receive a human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha. Now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us, with sincerity and true reverence, take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things. The peerless, profound, and wonderful Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats.
Please everyone join me in Gassho for reading of Three Treasures in Japanese. Sankiemon. Ninjin uke gata shi ima sudeni uku. Buppo kiki gata shi ima sudeni kiku. Konomi konjou ni mukatte dose zumba. さらにいずれの章に向かってかこの身を動線大衆もろともに指針に三宝に消えし立て祀るべし自ら仏に消えし立て祀るまさに願わくば主情とともに大道を体現して無常意を起こさん自ら法に消えし立て祀るまさに願わくば主情とともに深く胸像に入りて知恵海のごとくなん自ら僧に消えし立て祀るまさに願わくば主情とともに大衆を通りして一切無下ならん無常人人未明の方は百千万号にも愛をことかたし我今検問し受理することを得たり願わくば如来の真実義を下し立て祭らん Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu.
Thank you, Reverend. Now I would like to call on Reverend Dean Koyama, Kyokucho for the Bay District, to introduce our special guest speaker today, Reverend Tadao Koyama.
Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to participate in this virtual Obon service. I have the distinct pleasure to introduce one of our newest Kaikyoshi, almost ministers of the Buddhist Churches of America, and our first speaker for this service, Reverend Tadao Koyama. Reverend Koyama was born and raised in Sacramento, California. He graduated from UC Santa Cruz and worked for a couple of years as a field representative to former California State Assembly member Mariko Yamada. He then continued his education at the Institute of Buddhist Studies, followed by 1 year of study at our Nishihonganji Seminary School, the Chuo Bukkyo Gakuin or Chubutsu in Kyoto, Japan. This was then followed by another year in Kyoto at the Gonshiki Shido Sho, which specializes in rituals and chanting. He returned to the United States in late March in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. He began his first assignment just a few days ago on August 1st at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple, where I also served and enjoyed a wonderful time as a minister. I have to admit, it's very difficult for me to refer to my nephew, Reverend Tadao, as Koyama Sensei or Reverend Koyama, because for all these years, whenever I heard that name, Reverend Koyama or Koyama Sensei, I've always been the one that they meant, especially at the Tacoma Temple and in the Northwest District. Reverend Sugahara told me that he now has to refer to me as Dean Sensei because we now have two Reverend Koyamas. But I told him, no, he has to earn it first. I'm Reverend Koyama. Tadao will have to wait to be called Reverend Koyama until after I retire, which isn't too far away. But with all kidding aside, I look forward to being able to share in hearing the teachings of the Onenbutsu from the younger generation and deepening my awareness of the workings of Amida Buddha's primal vow. And now, at this time, I introduce Reverend Tadao Koyama for his Dharma message.
Good morning, everyone. Will you all please join me in Gassho? When sentient beings think on Amida, just as a child thinks of its mother, they indeed see the Tathagata, who is never distant, both in the present and in the future. Nam-man-dots, nam-man-dots, nam-man-dots. Well, hello everyone, and I would like to thank you all for inviting me to participate in the first joint YouTube Obon service. And thank you to Reverend Dean Koyama, Uncle Dean, for introducing me. Yes, as well as you, whenever I hear someone refer to me as Reverend Koyama, you also do come to mind as I'm thinking that you're close in the room or something, so I get a little nervous when I hear Reverend Koyama. I would also like to thank all of the ministers who are currently participating, and especially the ministers of the Northwest District for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all today. As we are observing Obon this time of year, I am certain that many, if not all of you, are already aware of the story of Shakyamuni Buddha's disciple, Malgalyayana, and his mother. In the Japanese tradition, many people still gather for this festival to welcome deceased relatives back to this world, where we offer them food and celebrate this festivity with dancing and merriment. The quote I share today comes from Shinran Shonin's Jodo Wasan. I know that Reverend Sugahara has been working tirelessly in explaining all of the Wasan of Shinran Shonin on his YouTube channel. I chose this Wasan because it likens Amida Buddha to a loving parent. For all of us who have departed, who have loved ones who have departed this world, whether it be a parent, a teacher, friend, sibling, we think on them with fond memories and have a large sense of comfort. We think of the positive effect they have had on our lives. Obon is the perfect time to celebrate our departed loved ones. As Jodo Shinchu Buddhists, it is also the opportunity for us to reflect once again on the constant working and compassion of Amida Buddha, especially in the times we are living in. Sadly, this year, we cannot physically come to one place and dance our hearts out to some of our favorite Obon songs. My personal favorite is Ei Janaika. We cannot come together with all of our friends, eat good food, drink beer, and listen to taiko drums live. These troubled times are really testing our fortitude in terms of working a new sense of normalcy into our lives. The presence of COVID-19 has made all of us more cautious in terms of meeting one another. We must stand 6 feet apart. Certainly, this would be very hard to do if we all went to an Obon dancing at places like San Jose Betsuin, where you can barely move a few steps during the first dance because people are too close together. The thought of many people gathering in one place now is unthinkable, as it would pose a gigantic health risk to many. Even activities we probably have taken for granted, like coming to temple once a week, have been taken away from us. On a more serious note, throughout the country, more people are getting sick, more people are dying from this virus, and for many people, racial tension and aggression have become more visible and rampant. During this time, it is very easy for us to fall into sadness and even despair. This is okay. We have to first acknowledge these feelings of sadness and despair. These feelings, these worries, even our anger, are real and valid emotions. Realizing we no longer have the same amount of access to activities and services can be very upsetting for all of us, making us masking our fear and sadness and anger with a false sense of bravado or Buddhist detachment is both unhealthy and unrealistic. However, despite all of the changes we have to make in order to maintain the health and safety for everyone, it is also a perfect time to reflect on how the messages of our Buddhist teachers can help prepare all of us for continuing to deal with this crisis. While we are still unable to return to services at temple, and of course acknowledging that nothing can ever replace the joy and the comfort we feel when attending the services, we can also be very grateful that we live in an age of technology that allows us to access services in a remote way. We can still use the resources we have to listen to the Dharma and to still appreciate the wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha. And most importantly, concerning Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, it has not abandoned us even during this time. The working is still present in our lives now and will continue to work in the future. So first, acknowledging emotions of anger, frustration, sadness, and loneliness is very necessary for our well-being. We are all people who have attachments and desires. This is why we are embraced by Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion. We alone realize that we are incapable of freeing ourselves from our attachments to our loved ones, to our places of worship, and to the old ways of normal. We struggle to accept truths of impermanence that we were so often taught during the Sunday services, said by many ministers before. Once we realize that we ourselves are these beings who have base passions that we cannot free ourselves by ourselves, then we recite the Nembutsu. Going back to the Jodo Wasan from earlier, when we think on Amida Buddha, this is what the Nembutsu is. When an enormous sense of gratitude of the fact that we are still able to hear the Dharma and receive the benefit from Amida Buddha's wisdom and compassion, we press our palms together and recite the Nembutsu. While it is true that human relationships between family members and friends alike can be complicated, what Shinran was trying to get across in his Wasan was that when a child thinks of a mother, there was a large sense of comfort, security, love, and warmth. All of these feelings are the same in regards to thinking on Amida. As a Buddha who accepts all to the Pure Land without any discrimination, knowing that we are these imperfect beings drowning on our selfishness and ego, Amida embraces us as we are and still accepts us to the Pure Land. So while we are unable to attend services in person, and while it is very sad and frustrating, we cannot get together with all of our friends and loved ones to celebrate the lives of the countless relatives who have passed on before us, we can still all take part in these virtual Obon sessions and virtual Sunday services where the love and care of each other can still be felt and the message of Namo Amida Butsu can still be heard. Thank you very much for listening to my English Dharma talk. I will now switch to my Japanese one. 子の母を思うがごとくにて、衆生物を苦するば、現前到来、遠からず、如来を拝見疑わずと。皆様、こんにちは。この度、ポートへを取る次のご縁をいただきました。タコマ仏教会小山忠夫と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。すみません。私の日本語はまだあんまりうまくはないので、私の本日の方を聞いてくださりありがとうございます。本日のご参題は、親鸞上人の浄土和算を引用しました。この和算を選んだのは、阿弥陀如来を愛する親に例えたためです。愛する人と離れた人にとって、それが親だやれ、先生だやれ、友人だやれ、兄弟だやれ、私たちは彼らとの思いを考え、心に安らぎを持ちます。彼らが私たちの生活にもたらした猿の影響について考えます。お盆は亡くなった愛する人たちのことを思う最適な時期です。浄土真宗の門徒として、特に私たちが住んでいる時代に阿弥陀如来のためない働きと思いやりを改めて考える機会でもあります。残念ことに今年は物理的に一日箇所に集まって踊ることができません。友達と一緒においしいものを食べたり、ビールを飲んだり、太鼓の生演奏を聞いたりすることはできません。コロナウイルスの存在はお互いに合うという点で、私たち全員をより慎重にしています。私たちは6 feet と離れて立つ必要があります。抱き合うことはできません。外に出るときはすべてマスクを着用する必要があります。週に一度はお寺に来ることもできなくなりました。しかし、すべての人の健康と安全を維持するために、私たちが行わなければならないすべての変更にもかかわらず、仏教の教師のメッセージがこれに対処し続けるために、私たち全員を準備するのにどのように役立つか振り返る絶好の機会でもあります。また私たちは今テクノロジーの時代に生きています。だから私たちはオンラインサービスにアクセスしてダルマを聞くことができます。ありがたいことでですね、一番大切なことは、このような困難な時期であっても、阿弥陀如来の知恵と思いやりはいつも私のもとに届いて いるということです。お寺に行くことはできますが、阿弥陀如来の教えはいつでもどこでも考えることができます。これが念仏を唱える理由です。悲しみ、欲不満、怒り、絶望を感じることもありますが、私たちが阿弥陀如来について考えるとき、私たちが知恵と思いやりに抱かれていることに気づきます。そして私たちは快適さ、温かさ、そして安心を感じます。みんな安心安全健康な生活を実践して、いつかみんなでお寺でお参りができるようにしましょう。本日のご縁、誠にありがとうございました。
Thank you, Tadao. Now you can relax a little bit. This was your first big test as a new minister. Big test. But now at this time, I'd like to introduce our two speakers. First in English, our Bishop, Reverend Marvin Harada, followed by Reverend Ryuta Furumoto in Japanese.
Thank you, Reverend Jerry, for your kind introduction. First of all, I would like to thank our Northwest District ministers and all of our BCA Kyokusho for conducting this first ever BCA-wide virtual Obon service. I'd like to begin my message with a short quotation. This is from Renyo Shonin's letters, but in one of Renyo Shonin's letters, he quotes a very famous passage from the Chinese Pure Land Master Zendo Daishi, or Shan Dao. The quote goes as follows: "To realize faith oneself and to guide others to faith is the most difficult of all difficulties. To tell of great compassion and awaken beings everywhere is truly to respond in gratitude to the Buddha's benevolence." Today, for my message for Obon, I would like to reflect on this passage in light of my memories of a wonderful member of the Orange County Buddhist Church who recently passed away at the age of 101, the late Sachi Ochiai. Sachi was an amazing person, not just because she lived to an amazing age of 101, but she was a most devout follower of the Nembutsu. In Shin Buddhism, we have an expression called myo koning to explain or to express the most exemplary devout followers of the Nembutsu. I think for all of us at OCBC, Sachi was our myo koning. She was the most sincere and deep listener of the Dharma. She was at every service. She was at every Buddhist Education Center class, and she was at every seminar. And not only ours at OCBC, but she often traveled to other temples to go to their retreats and seminars as well to listen. Over the many years that I served at OCBC, I taught the Introduction to Buddhism and Jodo Shinshu class numerous times. Sachi took it every time. And I would say to her at the first class, "Sachi, you've taken this class 8 times already. I don't think you need to take this class." But she would say, "Oh no, but every time I listen, I learn something new." So she was that kind of listener of the Dharma. One thing that really amazed me about her was that in the 33 years that I knew her, not once did I ever see her doze off in a service or in a class. I can't say the same for myself. Sometimes I catch myself dozing off in a message or in a class. But for her, it was her greatest joy to listen to the Dharma. Renyo Shonin, in another one of his writings, I couldn't find the exact quotation, but he said something like, all you really need is just one person of Shinjin, and then you have a true Sangha, and the Nembutsu will continue to flourish. And I think that at OCBC, Sachi was that one person for us. She was a Dharma school teacher for over 30 years. She remembered every one of her students, and every one of her students also remembered her. I'd like to share a couple of Sachi stories with you today. This is a story about when my good friend Reverend David Matsumoto spoke at OCBC. So over the years, I had invited Reverend David to speak numerous times. And this was about at least the fourth or fifth time that he was speaking at Orange County. And, you know, we ministers, we probably should keep better records of what did I speak at what temple, but we don't always do that. And I didn't do that as well. And we're in the back room getting ready for the service. And Reverend David says to me, you know, the last time I spoke here, did I give this sermon or did I tell this story? Or he was trying to recall what he had spoken of last time. And so I said, you know, I don't think you gave that talk before. I think you're safe. Go ahead and give that talk. And so, but Reverend David is so honest. At the beginning of his message, he said, well, to be honest with all of you, I didn't keep record of what I spoke of last time. I hope I haven't shared this message before. And he, of course, gave a very beautiful message. Well, after the service, we were in the back room, and Sachi comes in to say hello. And she thanks Reverend Matsumoto for his sermon. But then she goes on to say, well, you know, Reverend Matsumoto, the first time that you spoke here, you spoke on this topic. And then the second time you spoke here, you talked on that topic. And then the third time you spoke here, this is what you talked about. She reiterated every single sermon that he had given. Reverend Matsumoto's jaw just kind of dropped. He was flabbergasted. We were all flabbergasted. And you know, Sachi wasn't bragging that she could remember all his talks. She was really, for his benefit, trying to share what he had spoken of. And the reason why she remembered his messages so clearly was that every time we had a special service, she would give me her little cassette recorder, a little Walkman kind of a cassette recorder, and she left it on the podium. And when the guest speaker would start their sermon, I had to start record the Dharma talk. So Sachi would listen to those tapes of those Dharma messages over and over and over again. And that's how she remembered so clearly every one of Reverend Matsumoto's messages and every message of all the guest speakers that we had over the years. Sachi influenced all of our members, young and old. And it was especially impressive to me how she would affect even brand new people, only there 1 or 2 Sundays. And somehow they sensed something from Sachi. And I even had one individual tell me that, well, the reason I became a member here is because I just want to be around people like her, by that lady there, by Mrs. Ochiai. So one person like that can have a tremendous influence on your temple, on your Sangha. And we were most fortunate to have had an individual like Sachi Ochiai. I'd like to return to that quotation I started with in the beginning by Zendo Daishi, quoted in Renyo Shonin's letters. So let me read it again. To realize faith oneself and to guide others to faith is the most difficult of all difficulties. To tell of great compassion and awaken beings everywhere is truly to respond in gratitude to the Buddha's benevolence. This is a translation that appears in the book titled Renyo by Miner and Ann Rogers. So a person of Shinjin, a person of the Nembutsu, like Sachi, to me, lived this passage, Jishin Kyonin Shin. Her spirituality, her life of Nembutsu, that itself guided others along their path. She never taught in a condescending manner. She never said, you know, you should do this or you should do that. Just by living the Nembutsu, that is how she influenced and guided others on their path of the Nembutsu. And that was how she shared the heart of the Buddha, wisdom and compassion. I feel that I was most fortunate to have been able to have been assigned to the Orange County Buddhist Church and to have met and known such a deep listener of the Dharma, a real person of the Nembutsu, Sachi Ochiai. Those are my thoughts at this year's Obon. Namandam.
しかるに世の人伯族にして共に普及の字を争うとナムアミダブツナンマンダブツナマンダブツナンマンダブツ。はい、皆さんこんにちは。南部教区教区長で先進仏教会の古本と申します。ノースウエストには日本語を話されるお同業の方が多いと聞きましたので、日本語でお取り次ぎをさせていただきます。お盆は、裏盆というのが語源で、裏盆というのはインドの言葉で逆さずりという意味だと言われています。逆さずりというのは、私たちが真実を見ていない、真実を知らないということを表しています。つまり仏様の見方とは反対の見方をしているということでございます。逆さに見ているので、間違って物事を見ていて、それで自分にも他人にもトラブルを起こしている。それを凡夫と言います。で、凡夫というのは、簡単に言えば、バカ垂れということです。バカが垂れてくるわけですね。出そうと思わなくても、ついつい出てきます。例えば、学校でついうとうとと居眠りをしているときに、よだれが出ますよね。よだれが出て、また戻して、ちょっと恥ずかしい思いしますよね。ああいうふうにバカが外に出て、恥ずかしい思いをする。そういうのが凡夫でございます。それで数ヶ月前に、3ヶ月前ですかね、本当自分はそういうバカだなというふうに、本当凡夫だな、恥ずかしいなということがありました。それはちょっとマスク、このマスクがありますよね。マスクを買った時の話なんですけど、3ヶ月前、4ヶ月ですかね、ちょうどコロナウイルスが感染が拡大し始めて、マスクがね、あんまりどこのお店も売ってなかったんです。で、その時僕は5、6枚ぐらいその使い捨てのマスクを持っていたんですけど、まだ万が一があっちゃいけないので、予備のマスクをね、買おうとしてたんですよ。それで、マルカイに買い物に行ったんです。皆さん、マルカイ知ってますか？宇和島屋さんみたいなところなんですけど、今はね、東京セントラルという名前なんですけど、まだマルカイでもみんな慣れてるので、僕はマルカイってまだ言ってるんですが、このマルカイに、マスクないかなって見に行ったんです。そしたら、マスクがあったんです。ねどこのお店も売ってなかったんですけど、マルカイにも2、3枚だけマスクが置いてあって棚に。ほんで、これはもう誰も気づいてないのかなと思って、人が気づく前に、はいよ、買わねえけん、それパッと取って、ほいで、カゴに入れたんです。で、そのマスクは、サンリオっていうね、ところの出してるマスクで、キティちゃんって言いますよね。白い猫のキティちゃんというキャラクター。キティちゃんの顔のマスクだったんです。ねだからちょっとなんか小さめに作ってあって、ほいで、多分キティちゃんの顔が大きすぎたら可愛くないから、ちょっとちっちゃく作って可愛くしてるのかなと、そういうふうに思ってたんですよね。ほいでキティちゃんのマスクをしとったら、 ちょっとまあね、大人だったら恥ずかしいと思って、それで、そこにちょっと2、3枚残ってたのかなと思ってたんです。まあ、それで、まあ、それでもね、マスクが僕欲しかったから、マスクパッと買って、よかった思って。ほいで、家に帰って、ほんで、まあ、自慢してやろうと。自分の家族に、マスク買いたいとか、自慢しよう思って、ほいで、ね、まあ、家帰ってから、ほんで、買い物のバッグからこのキティちゃんのマスク出して、マイファミリーにね、これかわいいの買うたんじゃええじゃろって言って、まあ、見したんです。そしたら、僕の娘が、お父さん、そのマスクのパッケージ見せてみてとか。ほんで、これ、マスク渡したら、お父さん、このマスクね、口にするのじゃなくて、目にするやつや。お父さん、間違えてアイマスクこう取る言ってから。って思って、ほんで、僕がね、また目が悪くなってから、老眼鏡、店持ってってないので、ほんで、家で老眼鏡でパッと見たら、ほんまにアイマスクで書いておりまして、ほいで、もう、それ、バカだなと思ったんですよ。もう、あれ、10ドルしたんですよ。ね、ほんで、アイマスクだけ誰も買うてなかったんじゃなと思って、ほんでも失敗して、もうね、家族にも恥ずかしいしね、ほんとバカが垂れたなというふうに、そういうことがあったんです。まあ、ほんで、またそれまた急いで買わんでも5、6枚まだエクストラがあるのに、急がんでもいいなとポーコで、ほいで、あの時にこの大無量寿経のこの5問をね、思い起こしたんです。今日の御三代ですけども、大無量寿経に、しかるに世の人、伯族にして共に普及の字を争うというふうにございます。まあ、なかなかね、お浄土とかお悟りのことには、まあ、目が向かず、薄っぺらなね、人生を送りがちなのが、この凡夫だと言われるんです。これで普及の字を争うと言って、急がんでもいいことを急いで失敗することがよくあるんだと、ご指摘くださっておられます。まあ、本当だったら、自分より先にあなたマスク買いなさいと。皆さん、ここにキティちゃんのマスク残ってますよと言わなきゃいけないのに、そうじゃなくて、人が気づかんうちポッとこうちゃらうてから、ああいうね、人より優位にいたと得しよう。そういうふうな浅ましい逆さずりの心が出てくるのが、この凡夫なのです。まあ、けれども、その凡夫こそ、必ず救うという願いを立ててくださって、そして受け入れてくださるのが、南無阿弥陀仏の仏様だと、親鸞上人がお示しくださっています。歎異抄第9条に、仏兼ねて白示して、煩悩具足の凡夫と仰せられたることなれば、他力の悲願は核のごとし、我らがためなりけりと知られて、いよいよ頼もしく覚ゆるなり、と親鸞上人のお言葉が記されてあります。まあ、仏様がこの凡夫らもダメだということを知っているので、もう先に必ず救うの願いを立ててくださって、それで必ずね、救ってくださる。それが決まっているのです。だから私たちのこのバカが出てきたら、そこには仏様がすぐ働いてくださっている。仏様が目当てにしてくださっているんだなと。これが頼もしいお慈悲だと、仏様に感謝していくわけでございます。まあ、そしてまた自分のバカが出たのを反省していく。ダメなんだけどいいと。そうありがたく監督していくのが浄土真宗の念仏者の一つの生き方だということでございます。今日は、裏盆へお盆のご縁にね、この凡夫のこと、仏様が必ず助けてくださるということをお取り付けさせていただきました。ありがとうございました。南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏。
Thank you, Reverend Harada and Reverend Furumoto. I think we will all miss Sunu Sachiochiai and Furumoto Sensei. I think you would be really cute with that Hello Kitty mask. So I'm looking forward to see you wearing it. Next, we'll continue with the reading of a Gobun Sho, first by Reverend Harry Bridge in English of Shinjin Gyakutoku Sho, followed by the reading of the same Gobun Sho by Reverend Ron Miyamura. Actually, it's opposite. Reverend Harry Bridge will speak in Japanese, and then Reverend Ron Miyamura in English.
Shinjin Gyakutoku Sho というは第18の願の心るなり。この願の心るというは南無阿弥陀仏の姿を心るなり。このゆえに南無と奇妙する一年のところに本願根っこの心あるべし。これすなわち未来如来の凡部にエコしまします心なり。これを大教には了承主上功徳成就と解けにされば無視以来作りと作る悪語煩悩残るところもなく願にき不思議をもって消滅する言われあるがゆえに症状十不体の位に十数となりこれによって煩悩断ぜずして涅槃のうと言えるはこの心なり。この義は投入一途の初段なるものなり。他流の人に対して格のごとく沙汰あるべからざるところなり。よくよく心べきものなり。ana kashiko, ana kashiko. Nama.
Shinjin Gyakutoku Sho, attaining the entrusting heart. Attaining the trusting heart lies in understanding the 18th vow. To understand this vow means to understand what Namu Amida Butsu is. And so, when one takes refuge, that is, Namo, in Amida, in one thought moment, making aspiration and directing virtue is implied. This means that Amida Tathagata directs virtue to us, foolish beings. This is taught in the larger sutra as bringing all sentient beings to the attainment of virtues. So it follows that all the karmic evil and blind passions which we have given rise to since the beginningless past are completely extinguished by the inconceivable vow power. Hence, we dwell in the stage of non-retrogression, or the stage of the truly assured, truly settled. This is the meaning of the statement, we attain nirvana without severing blind passions. This teaching is unique to our tradition and so should not be discussed with followers of other schools. We should carefully bear in mind, humbly and respectfully. Thus spoke Renyo Shoni. No.
Thank you, everyone. Now, in closing today's service, I'd like to thank all the BCA Kyokucho and ministers of the Northwest District, and especially our speakers, Reverend Harada and Furumoto, but especially Reverend Tadao Koyama. Welcome to BCA and the Northwest. I still remember how difficult it was to begin speaking in front of others, especially other ministers, and we made it even more harder for you by having you speak in Japanese and English. And I think you've made your mom and dad proud, and now they know what it is they've been spending their money on for the past so many years, and now you can begin to make your own money. So welcome to this life, hopefully a wonderful life as a kaikyoshi. Now you can relax a bit after your big move to Tacoma and the service. And please thank Cindy from all of us for supporting you all the way through this. And lastly, I'd like to thank Reverend Yuki Sugahara, who made all the arrangements for the specially Kangia Obon service. Although we can't physically be together, I hope you all felt how the Nembutsu joins us all living in the dead. So could you please join me in closing with Gasho? Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you, everybody. Please stay safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and please socially distance.
We will gather friends all along the way and bring fruits and vegetables for the shrine. Like Mogalana many, many years ago. Obon, it's festival day. All our humble thanks we will here convey to our dearly loved ones who lived in the past. With Nembutsu on our lips. Obon, it's festival day. Oh, the streets are lined with our lanterns gay, and the wind bells twinkling atop the